who was supposed to be the Messiah and of this future that they had envisioned for themselves. Where do we go from here? On our way to Emmaus, do we continue talking and revealing the message that Jesus taught us? Do we continue talking about that love and that compassion and the healing that Jesus demonstrated? Or do we go back to that routine that we came from, back to before all of this happened? We heard of the women who exclaimed that Jesus had, in fact, risen from the dead, but at the tomb there was no body to be found, resurrected or dead. They didn't know where to place their hope. There was no body, but they didn't see Jesus. There was no proof yet. Where could Jesus have gone? Reading the narrative that Luke wrote makes my heart wonder about the road to Emmaus. What is this place? And why were these men going there? Luke doesn't provide the details of Emmaus or the reason behind the departure of these two men. But one can only wonder if they were perhaps just going back home after having celebrated Passover. Or perhaps after a heartbreak, they decided to leave the place where they saw Jesus being crucified. In his book, The Magnificent Defeat, Frederick Buechner interprets Emmaus as the place we go in order to escape. Emmaus is whatever we do or wherever we go to make ourselves forget that the world holds nothing sacred, that even the wisest and bravest and loveliest decay and die, that even the noblest ideas that men have had, ideas about love and freedom and justice, have always in time been twisted out of shape by selfish men for selfish ends. This road traveled sounds familiar to me and perhaps even to many, if not all of us. After having our hearts broken, don't we just want to run away from the situation? It's like the flight or fight response. You either fight or you fly away. You leave, you run. And we want to stand up for our love, and we want to stand up and fight for the justice in our hearts. We want to keep up that fight. But there comes a time where we just want to run and escape it all, and escape the injustice that we see, and escape the heartbreak that we're feeling, or escape the hate that we're seeing. And we just want to accept defeat. Let me be like that rock, rolling and rolling and rolling. Perhaps Cleophas was running away from the cross, this symbol of embarrassment, of torture and death. Perhaps we're also running away from these places. The road of Emmaus is a road that can easily be accessible, but it's a difficult road to travel through. Walking down this path, we heard the pain of these men. We heard the pain that they carried with them, the hopelessness, the helplessness, the words that they uttered. They said, but we had hoped. We had hoped that he was the one. Their hopelessness led them to this road, and the same road led them to Jesus. In the form of a stranger walking down, asking a question, what are you talking about? And they shared with him their broken hearts. Without knowing that was him, without Jesus revealing his divinity. But in true Messiah style, in true style of Jesus, he took this opportunity to teach the men. Amid this grief of what could have been, in the middle of this conversation, when this man asked, what are you talking about? They are called to relive again the story that they have just gone through. As if their pain couldn't be worse enough, they have to come again and say about the sacrifice of Jesus. And to me, this sounded like ripping a stitch off a wound, having to retell the story again after it just being fresh in your mind. But this was purposely done by Jesus. He wanted them to retell them the story. He was curious to know what happened. And the surprise to the men, after having said everything, they found out that this man was pretty wise. He knew who the Messiah was. He started teaching them. But they didn't know who this man was. Through what could only be called as a divine veil or being heavenly blinded, the two travelers did not recognize Jesus. Had he changed in appearance in 3 days? Did he go to the tomb and not get enough sunlight that they did not recognize him anymore? However it may have happened, this incognito Jesus was listening to the conversation of his own death and his disappearance from the tomb. And upon hearing the broken hearts of the two men, Jesus, in true Jesus style, said, "Oh, how foolish you are and how slow of heart." There is Jesus throwing shade. But Jesus heard the grief for the future that he had hoped. Jesus observed the pain. And Jesus saw their dwindled faith. But unlike us who want to run from heartbreak, Jesus does not run. And instead he fights for these men, and he fights for the hopelessness that they have. And he shared with them the divine reasoning behind the suffering at the cross, and he spoke to them for hours and hours about the prophecy of the Messiah. But before all of this, they had just met him on this road, a hopeless road. Jesus didn't wait for them to leave and to return back to Jerusalem. Jesus met them here. And when he met them, he didn't shame them for not having faith on the prophecy of who the Messiah was to be, or what caused him to be the Messiah, or why he had to be crucified, why he had to die. No. Jesus took this moment to yet again teach these men. And this is the road where Jesus finds us. Not at the exit, but at the entrance, when we are hopeless and not hopeful, when we run because we are tired to fight, when we doubt, we can't no more. This past weekend, I had gone to a retreat in the Poconos with this organization that I've been a part of for a long time, where we gather youth and young adults from the tri-state area, and we have retreats for them, and we go on mission trips. And prior to the pandemic, we had made this whole line of a succession line of how we were going to continue this with the next generation of leaders. And then COVID happened, and we did not see each other for a year. And we didn't have our retreats, and we didn't have our mission trips.